Child taker at McDonald's. So, I work at a small McDonald's in an even smaller town in the south, and I've encountered many strange people and seen some fucked up things so far, and probably will write more encounters with them on here. But I saw something today that I thought I would never see, and was shocked at how many people didn't notice or didn't even care about what was taking place right next to them. I was working behind the counter at around 7 p.m., and we had lots of people in the lobby, a few children as well. I like kids, so I usually watch them play around in the lobby, because they are really cute, but I got distracted by the large amount of customers we had to serve, and ignored them for about 15 minutes. I looked back when I heard a man ask in a small voice, almost whispering, "So, how old are you?" I turn around to see this extremely tall guy with a shaved head and a red shirt talking to a little girl who looked about five or 6 years old. He had a little boy around the same age on his shoulders who was giggling as well. They were beautiful children with blonde hair and blue eyes. I saw that they were happy, and the guy seemed friendly enough. But something in my head was extremely worried. It was screaming at me. I had a huge suspicion upon seeing this, that these kids were not his. What grown man would ask a little girl how old she is? And if he knew who they were, wouldn't he already know? Why would he even care? But after this, he said something that made my heart sink. "You should come with me now. I have a little brother who's 6 too. Let's go play with him." He then began to walk to the exit with a boy on his shoulders, and the girl tagging along, and I immediately shout for the door to stop him, just as a lady with blonde hair came out of the bathroom shouting, "Hey, where are you guys going? Get over here!" The tall guy froze with eyes as big as saucers. He was fucking petrified. The lady then scooped up the little girl in her arm and reaches for the boy, as the tall guy lets him down, stammering, "Oh, I was just playing with your kids. They're really nice kids. I just really like kids." All at once with a nervous smile. The blonde lady then faked a smile back, but still had eyes that clearly said, "Yeah, stay the fuck away from my children, you fucking creep." But her mouth ended up by saying, "Oh, well, I'm glad you had a nice time, but we need to order now," and led her kids to the back of the restaurant. The tall guy then hurried out of the front exit, and the lady clutched her kids close to her the entire time she was there, even when they were in their booth. If I ever see that guy at work again, I will immediately call the cops on him. Who knows what would have happened to those kids if I wasn't looking, or their mother hadn't come out of the bathroom at that very, very second. I think that it's awful that she left her kids unattended in a full restaurant lobby, but no one deserves to lose their children to a disgusting creep with a sick grin like that. You looked at us funny. This happened when I was about 13 or 14 years old. I'm almost 23 years old now, and it still scares me to think about it sometimes. At the time of this event, my dad was deployed in Afghanistan. My mother was working a 12-hour day shift. She's a nurse. She left some money for my brother, who was then 7 years old, and sister 11 years old, to go to Pizza for dinner. Now, I live in Orleans on, by all accounts, a really safe suburb. This Pizza is on a very busy intersection, and the walk there and back from our house was also quite busy as well. Anyways, we go inside, order and eat our pizzas. This is around 5 p.m. in the daylight still. There is a group of around 4 to 5 teenage girls, probably the same age I was or a little bit older. They also have a 7-year-old boy hanging around with them, presumably a younger brother of one of the girls. My brother finishes his meal and goes to use the bathroom. At this point, some of the girls are standing near that door, and as my brother walks towards the bathroom, they put their foot out and trip him. He doesn't seem too fazed until it happens again on the way out. I say, "Leave him alone," and the girls go, "He was asking for it. He was looking funny at us." One of the girls then walks behind me. I'm wearing a tank top, and she notices my birthmark on my back and asks where I got my shit stain. I don't say anything. I just tell my siblings that we should go, hoping they don't follow us out. Well, they do. They don't follow right away, but a few feet behind us. I'm not sure what to do. Now, being the oldest, so we walk to a convenience store that's close to the pizza. We hang out inside for a little bit. They don't follow us inside. After a few minutes, I think it's safe to come out. We continue along, aiming to go home. As soon as we set foot on the sidewalk, the girls are behind us again. They're taunting us, swearing, laughing. I'm terrified at this moment, and I grab my brother's hand, walk as quickly as possible, without looking back or provoking them in any way, shape, or form. My sister is following behind at this point, but the girls start to surround her and make fun of her hair, amongst many other things. All of a sudden, I hear a scream. I turn around, and the girls have grabbed my sister by her ponytail, pulled her to the ground, and are kicking her. At this point, I don't know what came over me, but I marched right over to them, yelled, "What the fuck do you think you're doing?" And immediately at that moment, they stop, start laughing, and walk away. It's like it was all a game to them. My sister is visibly really freaked out, and since the girls headed in the direction that goes towards our house, I didn't feel comfortable going back home. Instead, we went across the street into a Shoppers Drug Mart, and I spent the next 20 minutes standing by the magazine rack, bawling my eyes out. Eventually, we called my mom at work, who then called the police. Around 10 p.m., an officer came by our house to ask for descriptions of the girls, which I gave, but I knew it was pretty pointless because they weren't going to find these girls. Preyed on at work. Now, this is a pretty long story I'm going to tell you. Recently, I've gotten a few messages asking if I'd had any other creepy encounters since the last story I posted, which occurred about seven years ago. This is the most recent encounter I have had. When I started college in the fall of 2014, I decided that I need to get a part-time job to help keep up with the daily costs of commuting to school. It took quite a bit of time to find jobs that were hiring someone with absolutely no experience, and eventually, I landed in a fast food job. I hated it. After about a month of working there, I couldn't take it anymore and I quit, eventually. One day, while sitting in my math class, I was chatting to my classmate about how annoyed I'd been with my previous job and how I was looking for a new job. She then told me that the place she worked at was hiring, and that I would be a perfect fit. She told me it was a small, privately owned bakery. Why I was a perfect fit, she told me, it's because that the owner liked to hire young pretty girls to work the register. Even better, it was only a 5-minute drive away from my college. She told me she'd speak to her boss about me, and the next day, I got a call to set up for an interview. When I went in for the interview, I met the owner, Tasha, who was a young pretty woman. She gave me a quick rundown of how the store was run, and explained to me that the employees almost always worked alone, due to the fact that all the baked goods were made in the morning by the bakers, and all the employees had to do was decorate them with frosting in the kitchen if they ran out of the goods up front. This seemed easy enough, and after filling out some basic paperwork, she told me to come in for training the next week. I was hired, apparently. Now, once I started the job, I realized that the job itself was exceptionally easy. After about 2 weeks of working there, I actually really started to get the hang of things. Because of how often I worked with the customers that came into the store at different times, I started to develop a really cheery attitude and was actually very friendly to people, even if they weren't always friendly to me. I enjoyed running the shop alone, because I tend to feel stressed when I have a manager standing over my shoulder constantly, looking down at me and kind of beckoning me on what to do. Even if she was quiet and didn't say a word, I would still feel that pressure. On top of that, I have always felt safe, because we have multiple cameras throughout the entire bakery store. The feeling of safety that I had was gone after about 2 months of working there. Now, I usually worked the evening shifts, which meant that I was the person who closed down the store at night and cleaned everything up at night. One night, around 7 p.m., I was sitting alone in the dining area folding some boxes. No customers had been in for about 40 minutes, and I was lost in the monotony of the work I was doing. Suddenly, I heard the loud ding of the door opening, and a man walked into the shop. "Hi, welcome, how can I help you today?" I said, as I walked behind the counter to wash my hands. "Oh, give me a moment, I'm just looking," replied the man. Now this was not uncommon, so I just brushed it off and told him yeah, sure, he could take his time. After a few minutes of this, I started to get a strange feeling. The man was staring through the glass, but every few seconds he would glance at me quickly, and then look back to the sweets. I asked him once again if he had needed any help, and he replied again, no. A few more minutes passed, and I became more and more uneasy. Just then, a few more customers walked in, and he waved them ahead of him, and I began to serve them. Once they left, he walked back up to the counter and towards a cash register. He leaned towards me a bit. "You have really beautiful eyes," he said, smiling. I will never forget that smile. It was one of the creepiest things I've ever seen. He exposed only his top teeth, continued staring at me, and kept licking his lips over and over. Thanks, but can I get you anything?" I asked. He ignored my question. "What time does the store close?" 8 p.m., I replied. "Do you have any plans after work?" he asked. "Yeah, I've got to go home and feed my dogs," I lied. "Would you be interested in going somewhere with me tonight?" he asked, his smile widening. No thank you." I glanced up at the camera pointing down at us, and he looked upwards and directly into the lens and then back at me. "Do you have a boyfriend?" "Yes, I do," I responded. "Come on, sweetheart. You don't have to lie to me." At this point, I was becoming seriously freaked out by this guy. "Let's go somewhere after you get off work." No thank you," I said firmly. "Why not?" he questioned, his smile fading from his mouth. "Because I just told you I have a boyfriend, and it would be inappropriate. I'm going to have to ask you to buy something or leave," I said, my voice sounding rather trembly. "All right. Can I have a vanilla cupcake with a pink frosting, please?" I glanced over at the racks to check to see if we had any out. We did not. "Yes, just one moment," I replied. I walked into the kitchen as quickly as possible without breaking into a sprint. I frosted a cupcake and brought it back out as quickly as possible, boxed it up, and asked for payment. He swiped his credit card, and the payment was accepted. He continued staring at me. "Do you need something else?" I asked, as I could feel my chest getting tight and my face getting hot. "Can I have your number?" he asked with a slight grin. "No, I don't share my number with customers." He then stared directly into my eyes for a few more seconds, his hands in his pockets. He started to get really red before saying, "Sorry, I'm just really turned on right now," and proceeded to reach down his pants and start fondling himself right there in front of the counter. I was in total disbelief. I guess when he saw the look of horror on my face, he panicked and ran out the door, leaving his cupcake on the counter. As soon as he left, the phone rang. It was my boss. "Who's the creep?" she inquired, as she had apparently been watching the security camera to check in on me and could tell by my body language that something was not right. I immediately broke down and started crying, as I never imagined something like this happening to me in a tiny little bakery. She told me to lock the door and call the police, who were stationed right across the street from us. My boss arrived about 30 minutes later, and the police were already there talking with me when she got there at the store. They asked her to pull the security footage, and when we all huddled together and watched it, we saw that every single time I stepped into the kitchen to help other customers, he was fondling himself while their backs were turned to him. I gave them a description of what he looked like, and they asked how he had paid. I told them he had swiped his credit card to pay. My boss told him that she could reprint the receipt from the transaction, which has both the first and the last name of the credit card holder on it. One of the cops asked someone back at the station to run the name, and almost immediately they found his driver's license, which I confirmed to be the same person. It was the creep from before on that picture. Eventually, my boss suggested that he might be recognized by the people who owns the hookah bar next to us, as his name sounded Middle Eastern. She asked them the next night, and they immediately recognized him as the younger brother of a guy who grew up with, who was engaged to be married within the month. The next day, the police went to his residence and arrested him for public indecency. Something my boss said to me that day has always stuck with me. If you ever feel unsafe at work, I want you to walk into the kitchen and go out the back door and call the police. Don't worry about the cash register. Don't worry about any of the food. All those things can be replaced, but you can't. I felt so grateful to have a boss who actually cared about the safety of her own employees. It wasn't just about the money. It took me a while to feel safe working the night shift again, but after a while, I got back into the swing of things, I guess. And I still work there to this day. I'm just glad I never saw that guy again, as the police ordered him to stay 100 feet away from the property at all times. So, creepy middle-aged guy who decided to harass and fondle himself in front of a teenage cashier. Let's not meet.